Okay, so Master Mason here. Generally, I've been running the set, and they're running a little low today, so I figured I would do this presentation one. This is a pretty good one. How much will you have for your retirement if you max out your 401k in your 20s? So that means like maxing it out. So what is Ben Eater trying to tell me here off the front before we get into a thing? Well, I actually like to run this as a 401k. And this is going to be a mountain design inside here. So firstly, we have to do, well, what Ben Eater might need to talk about here, being the set, is firstly we need to design. Well, this is the 401k in general after any index. You started in your 30s, you started in your 40s, you started in your 50s, you started when you were 18. And the arbitrary model is you don't want to max it out by your 20, but you're running an index at max. Why is that important? Because again, the 401k is generally the company that you live in. And that's going to be based off of how much you can actually put to it to say, I actually maxed this out, right? So we're going to put up a little tesseract here. And we're going to say MIG 1 to MIG 2 here is two differentiations of two arbitrary lines without a set value of models in general for 401k. But we can make one. We can make a general model for what a 401k is based off of $15 an hour. Because that would be basically what minimum wage is by any other standards, up and down, certain MOSs, certain jobs. So generally you say, you know, given the increments, there's no way to really determine this being 0, this being 1 in the background, let's say, right? Okay, this be 0, this be 1, and what happens between me walking a straight line in through this starts to build some boards. And like I said, that's going to transition all the way through lambda generally on points and vectors that give me some kind of way to fold this and actually give me 2 units, make that 8 units in 2 folds, or 2 moves, X to a different scale, and then a different operating field on the floor, or something to that effect at least. And of course this cross quadrants on a, it's X north to the outer barrier with pressure and gravity and rotation and stuff. But as we're building this out, you notice how that scale never changes on this index. All right, so that's super critical on this 401k, and trying to understand when you max out on this at your 20s, you'll get some advantages to this that you wouldn't get by any other standard of going against this gravity or trying to come back to a normal set of then operating to it and then understanding how that adjusts or renormalizes into that next function. Because obviously you'd have some sets here and they'd play on scale, of course. And this is where things get a little wonky with hedging some bets under the curve before you go through that index and say it cuts off at an angle. Does it reflect it? Does it refract it? Does it? So we're just going to build this up. Give ourselves an initial framework to work on in ones and zeros. You know what I mean? Some free spaces, but yeah, in sense, as these borders kind of close off, it still gives me a grid work, which later on all kind of plays through. So of course, in quadrants here, being that these 2 lines kind of polarize over, that makes this that fractal set. And and in that way, mandrel fractals otherwise, I'm beginning to actually put what my number is, 0 to 1, 0 to 401k or something that is close to it on some kind of parallel or system thereof that actually fits inside that box with some wiggle zone. They may not be the same thing, nor in the same topology. But I could put the topo map here, I could put the topo map here. I could play chess this way, code bullet on this board or this board or this board or this board. Or I could say I'm the front moving this way, I'm the front moving this way from relatively the same position, 2 different fronts. And in relative mirror aspects to each other when this one is fighting that force, play stratego. And your force is 0s and 1s in time against any index that wants to be a thing, be one thing, from 0 Big Bang to a hand, whatever, you know, just your house, a landscaper's map explicitly, because this is game theory on what is the value of, well, on contract to cut grass, and then the square footage changes, and that's an algebra. Then weed eating times, you know, X times whatever is going to give me trees I weed eat around, or a common fence line that algebraically changes that. And it starts to break that down. And as you do all that work, you're trying to mitigate that to a 1. You're trying to get that to this board over here that kind of breaks that down and has that set in range of the middle, the kind of electrons that could be on standard models or in parallel frames of that. They'll fold over, or they'll collapse, or they'll expand into those values, which are still X, Y, and Z on X, Y, and Zeta. You know, again, this being part of the marshmallow has a byproduct, has another function. As much as this is arbitrary to 2 steps, that is one thing in assembly that makes a table leg that'll go to be another table leg in blockchain, right? Measurements, then you're doing calculations every 10 minutes. You know, I'd stop, look at it, take a note. What did I learn in that 10 minutes? The difference is that you didn't. And then you're 20 minutes behind where 2 things happened. And arbitrarily, even if nothing happened, the same operation was in there between start and finished on those things. Clearly, some other things happened. They breathed, they did stuff, they wiggled, squiggly danger noodle, it burned calories because of gravity pressure happening. So just that aspect of that says that's it may not be relative, but that is definitely one of the factors. We're trying to figure out which one is the most relative, or at least relatively the most important. Arbitrarily, all the ones are like, yep, that's what it is. It gives it all shape. We all know it's a blade of grass or a banana, right? You know, that's what it is. That's the problem. You know, and we figured out that's what it. Couldn't figure it out as a banana. And it's like we were all like, oh no, it was this thing. You're like, no, it's this thing. It's like, oh, a banana. All right, fine. All right, whatever. Then you get the bus driver to take everybody where they're going, right?
401k plans are one of the most popular ways to fund your retirement in the U.S. As of 2020, around 60 million Americans use the tax advantage accounts to save for their future. 401k contributions are capped at $19,500 per year for most workers in 2021. But Uncle Sam often updates the limit to keep up with inflation. CNBC crunched the numbers, and we can tell you how much you will have for retirement if you max out your 401k during your 20s. First, some disclaimers. The math assumes that you'll max out your 401k every year starting at age 22, that your investments will earn 4% returns, and that you plan to retire at age 67. The numbers do not account for future changes to contributions.
This is right-hand rule. It goes the other way.
Any curveballs that life may
but it's in physics where time switches over between these 2 military caps and a 2 general body problem. Let's call this a ravine, right? You know, this area on the map between Castle. I'm trying to do a rook, but I don't know.
By the time you turn 40. At 50,
careful.
That number will grow to more than $400,000.
All right, I'm not doing bad here. Come on, I should catch you. Got this, squeaker.
Investing, at 60 years old,
there we go.
Your account will grow to over $600,000.
And obviously, this would be the other one.
When you're ready to retire at age 67, your account will be over $800,000. Starting younger lets you take advantage of the power of compound interest.
Yeah, but is
that
it?
Means you get
in
returns
game of evolution.
On the money you invest, and even better returns on your
a little different.
But remember, while maxing out your 401k
maybe
is a
maybe being better is little here, but they basically have to figure that out. You know, for him, they might jump it. This one's around here. Hey, wait, where are you going? And then this comes back around. He's like, oh, well, I would do that because that was this. So, anyways, M1 and M2 here really kind of operate under very different standards. Like, however this plays off, we'll call this one 2, or 1, and we'll call this one 2. Obviously, right-hand rule goes 0 to 1. Unless you're from a different planet or country or wherever algebra still works and makes that okay. And then obviously this one would have been a differentiation of that. Now, being the gravity, I'm going to win here. M0 relative to M1 being the one that kind of got there. M1 and M2, any 401k, any path that says energy for mass to go through here is a black hole trying to get to the other side of you, and you are basically the same thing on the same ground that do the same damn problem. In order to get that, you have to figure that out by your 20s, realistically, I like the 2-year after 18 through the military on land navigation, true north, magnetic north, and polar north. But hey, you're going to do a lot farther by the same number indexes of picking up the bunny rabbits on this rabbit calc. Something to consider. Catch you on the next one.